This is the second of our tips and tricks videos. In this one, we will be featuring drywall repair. For the first part of the video, we will deal with minor repairs such as holes left from hanging pictures, from tacking up posters, or other small kinds of damage. Along with the clear swipe tool and the spackling and the paper towel squares, we will be using another tool, a ball-peen hammer. Most holes that are left from tacks screws, nails, or hangers, they tend to have raised edges, and if you fill them with polyfiller as they are, when you sand them, those rough edges will more than likely reappear, and you will not have achieved the proper smooth finish that is required for painting. So before applying the spackling, use the round end of the ball-peen hammer and place it centered over the hole and push gently yet firmly so as to create a dimple. Now you can apply the spackling. The spackling is applied in a similar fashion as shown in the previous video. Just enough spackling to fill the hole so as to minimize sanding. Once the spackling is dry, you can proceed with the sanding. If you want to, with small holes such as these, you could speed up the drying process by using a hairdryer. The spackling, when fully dry, turns a solid white and is now ready for sanding. For this, we will use a dual fine-medium foam sanding pad and use the fine side only. And with little pressure, use small circular motions for the best results. Now we are ready for painting. Most people would use a brush to paint out these fixes. However, since the majority of walls are originally painted with flocked rollers, which leave a slightly textured surface, if you use a brush, the final finish will look more smooth and will show up in certain lighted conditions. I recommend using a small foam roller and tray for applications like these. The foam roller will leave behind a similar texture as the larger rollers and assures a more blended finish. One coat will do, but two is better. Here's the completed project. The paint is dry and the wall is as good as new. In this segment, we will tackle larger damage to drywall. Let's say you were moving out, and in doing so you caused some damage to a wall or walls, and you need to repair it so you won't lose your damage deposit. Or maybe you just had a party that got a little out of control. Either way, the damage needs to be repaired. First, we need to prepare the hole before applying the spackling. If the paper layer of the drywall has been lifted up, carefully cut away any of the loose paper by scoring around the paper and peeling out the offending section. Next, use the ball-peen hammer to slightly chamfer the edges of the hole and to assure that any rough edges are smoothed off. With holes of this size, expect to apply at least 2 coats of spackling, allowing each coat to dry thoroughly before applying the next. The first coat is put on thick so as to mostly fill the hole and will act as a good base for the second coat. Do not use a hairdryer on it and allow it to dry for at least 6 hours before applying the second coat. The spackling is dry now, and as you can see, it has shrunk quite a bit. I could have used a tube of what is called big crack filler to do the initial fill, and it would not have shrunk as much as this has. However, if you do that, use it only for the first fill coat and get as little as possible on the actual drywall, because it dries much harder than the standard spackling and is difficult and time-consuming to sand. Either way, you will still need to apply at least 1 more coat. Another option would be to use a cuttable self-adhesive patch. These work well and are necessary for larger holes, particularly if the hole goes right through the drywall. The downside of a patch is that it sits above the surface of the drywall and requires the spackling to be feathered out at least 3 to 4 inches from the edge of the patch so that the repair is not obvious. Now we will apply the second coat. Allow it to thoroughly dry and then inspect it to see if it requires another coat before sanding. You may use a hairdryer on this and any further coats of spackling. The spackling has dried and there's still a slight indentation, so we will apply a light third coat. Having inspected the patch, it has been determined that after the third coat had dried, it is ready for sanding. You will note that by following this method that there is very little buildup of spackling, which will greatly decrease the amount of sanding required. We will use the foam sanding pad again, using the medium side first and then finish up with the fine side. Having finished sanding and cleaning up the area, we will use the same foam roller and tray to blend in the touch-up paint. Remember, 2 light coats are better than 1 thick one. The second coat of paint has dried, and the repair is complete, and once again the wall is as good as new.